All right, have you heard this one? Stop drinking coffee. It's toxic because it has mold in it. I've heard this a lot recently. I've had people asking me questions about it. They're very concerned. Is coffee toxic? Is there mold growing in coffee? There's a little bit of truth to this, which is why people have hooked onto it and made it into this big thing, which it's not. So if you're worried about mold, and more specifically the mycotoxins from the mold that can, in some rare cases, be found in coffee in very, very small, minuscule amounts, then you're also going to have to be worried about other things like beer, wine, nuts, peanut butter, any type of grain whatsoever, cereals. You're going to have to cut all that out of your diet because mycotoxins have also been found in higher levels and more often in those foods than has ever been found in coffee. The reason it's not really a problem for coffee is when mold sometimes grows on coffee, then it's incinerated when we roast it, completely eliminated. There are some mycotoxins in some cases that can stay in coffee through the roasting process, through the brewing process, and end up in your cup. But it is such a small, minuscule amount that it will never affect your health. The most that I've seen in the studies that I've read is 3% of what is safe to consume. That is way, 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 way down on a level that you shouldn't even worry about. What some people have started doing is latching onto this because mycotoxins sounds scary. Mold sounds disgusting. Unfortunately, you're breathing in mold as we speak. It's disgusting, awful to think about, but you are. Sometimes there is mold in coffee, but to test coffee and say that it is mold-free, it's not really telling the whole truth. 9 times out of 10, coffee is going to be mold-free. There is some rare cases where mold grows on green coffee beans and people test it and say, oh my gosh, there's mold in the coffee. But to test a small amount of coffee and then say all of your coffee is mold-free is like saying I scooped up some dirt in my yard and it doesn't have any bugs in it, therefore my entire yard doesn't have any bugs in it. You can't say that your coffee is mold-free unless you're testing every single bean that goes into your roaster, and people aren't doing that. So it's kind of disingenuous. And that's why we don't test our coffee for mold, is because it's pointless. We're roasting our coffee at 385 degrees or higher for more than a couple of seconds. Once we get to that high temperature, we let it sit for a couple of seconds and then we dump our beans. There's no way the mold is surviving at those temperatures. And anything that is left over is so minuscule that you don't need to worry about health. Again, those are in the cases that mold even exists in the first place, which we've done an extremely good job of going to a distributor and a importer that imports from coffee farms that are very responsible. The importer is very responsible. We are extremely responsible in how we store our coffee and then roast it properly and get it to you. So if you have a good roaster like us, even local roasters are extremely good. Even the big roasters are extremely good. All of them, most of the time, are never going to have a problem with this. Unfortunately, it's a scare tactic, and unfortunately, there is some minor truth for them to latch onto, but it's the same with eating any other kind of food. Anytime you put something in your body and consume something, there's always a small, minuscule chance that you're doing something that is not going to be great for you. In this case of coffee, the chances are near zero. So don't worry about toxins in coffee. If you're really worried about something in coffee, be worried about caffeine. It raises your blood pressure, it causes heart problems. There's all kinds of bad things that happen with caffeine that are way more of a health risk than mycotoxins. So in that case, get decaf, which we have. Oh, by the way, I am not a biologist, I am not a doctor, I am not an expert in microbiology. I am going to put a link in the comment section down below. If you want to take a look at that link, it explains a lot more of what I'm talking about.